The original PlayStation VR unit launched in the fall of 2016 and was at one time the most popular unit ever released, but that's now years beyond being true. As for this cut in expected shipments of PSVR 2, Sony PR told website gamesindustry.biz that the company has, quote, not cut PlayStation VR 2 production numbers, end quote. More ominously, perhaps, the statement noted that Sony is, quote, seeing enthusiasm from PlayStation fans, end quote. On the face of it, a great thing until you realize that for this thing to have any hope, it needs to expand outside of PlayStation's existing hardcore base. As Sony has been recently toting, PSVR 2 is set to have nearly 40 games at launch, and the unit costs $550 with a Horizon Call of the Mountain bundle also available. So, disputed reporting from a reliable source. Dustin, I'll go to you first on this because I thought this was interesting. I read somewhere else, I didn't put it in here, that the author of this article, who is not Jason Schreier, to be clear, this is not a Jason Schreier report. This is from, I think, their Japanese office. This is the second time it seems like this person has gotten something wrong. I think the previous thing that was reported, as people have been saying, was that he had said that there was going to be a cut in PS5 shipments at some point that never came to fruition as well. So not a great track record. However, we've cited this person in the past and it's been true as well. So who really knows? I don't think Sony, I don't know. As a publicly traded company, I think that they're really not allowed to lie about their sales plans, but I have no idea. I mean, I don't know what their obligations are there. What do you think about this news?
Right. Well, usually when Sony, let's say there's a leak comes out, or any company for that matter, a leak comes out that is not necessarily good news, they'll either not respond or not comment on rumor and speculation, whatever, and just ignore it if it's true, to try to, act like everything's fine. But in this case, they very clearly came out and said, no, this is not true. So in this case, I'm inclined to believe Sony, but I think it is worth saying that right now, the state of the pre-launch PSVR 2 doesn't feel all that exciting. Doesn't seem like people are really all that hyped for it. And the launch lineup of games, while it is bigger than the original PlayStation VR, doesn't feel like it has that, like, any true system seller. And maybe it'll be the case once this, the Horizon game comes out, and maybe it's amazing and it is the system seller the game or the platform needs. But right now it doesn't seem to be really moving the needle. And I think it also is just a really bad price point for an economy that's not doing so well on a system that already costs $500. And yeah, that's not going to stop a lot of people from buying it. Myself included, right? I'm in a fortunate position where I can pull that off, and it is part of my job as well. So, but I think a lot of people look at this and they're like, well, that $550, how many games you can buy? A lot of people that's more than the amount of money spent more than the amount of money that they would spend on games for the entire year. So there's a lot to think about.
It's confusing for sure. It's not a good sign. Ultimately, I think the uphill battle that VR has to fight is the fight of convenience. And, I think about just the biggest problems with some of the best VR units that I've ever used, and like the Vive and even just the PSVR, and just the cumbersome nature of the cables and the setup and getting the camera and getting the base stations drilled in and making sure that they're calibrated and all this stuff. The reality is the overwhelming majority of people are just not willing to put up with that just to experience a game, because there's already a really, really convenient way to play video games. And there has been for a very, very long time. The Quest is the most convenient machine in the space. It's a very, very convenient VR machine. It's very, very cheap. It's very, very great. And I'll tell you this, it's been at least a few months since I've turned it on or played with it in any real meaningful way. And that's a very convenient, very affordable machine. So you compound that with this economy where it's like, yeah, this is a $550 machine that is very, very specific in what it does. The PS5 is a very expensive machine too, but it does like many, many things. It is your streaming hub. It is the way that you can connect with your friends. It opens the door. You can play anything on the store with it. So when you're asking for not only the price of that machine, but a little bit more for something that limits what you can do with it, that is inherently more inconvenient in an economy like this, it's I could see the economy murdering this thing, like sincerely. And maybe they could have done something. I'm not even necessarily convinced that something like Half-Life Alyx being there at launch would have made that much of a difference, given just the situation that we're in right now. It's not their fault necessarily. I still think that would have been wise to secure a deal like that. But I don't know. The fact that they're being so silent about it is weird, because it seems to indicate that we're not going to spend a lot of money on marketing, because chances are everybody who's interested in this already knows about it and has already gotten it. And maybe they're kind of maybe they're kind of relying on word of mouth. Because that is kind of how these things sell. Like, in all honesty, like I've never seen a Quest commercial. I just know that people have it, and that made me curious. So maybe that is just sort of the strategy with VR. Maybe there's no real point in marketing it because it's such an enthusiast kind of tech, and it's such a niche that the only way to really explode is to do it well enough that the early adopters jump in, and then they can't stop talking about it.
Reports are Sony have cut shipments on PSVR2. If true, how much do you blame their decision to have pre-orders only through PS Direct, PlayStation Direct? PS Direct for months now has had PS5s available for order, and yet people still complain they can't get one. Do people outside of gaming hardcore even know about PlayStation Direct? When you wrote in about this, Angel, I went and looked. I was like, they're not available anywhere else? And I went and looked on Amazon. I'm like, where are they? So that's certainly a piece of it. And I think that's weird. However, there's something about this where I don't know that it matters too much. Here's why. This is we saw Sony PR say themselves, we are seeing excitement from PlayStation fans. And I think that that's a canary in the coal mine about why this thing is going to be so limited, because that's clearly not enough. PS4 sold 120 million units and PSVR sold 5 million. So hardcore PlayStation fans, not enough. Hardcore PlayStation fans, 11 million of them just bought God of War. Let's say half of them, 5.5 million, are hardcore fans. So you need more people to come out. And this is the Achilles heel, as it were, of this particular product is, yes, the economy's bad, the timing's bad. This thing was obviously in concept phases before the pandemic. They probably had to decide whether they were going to release it at all. It would have been some sort of sunk cost. They probably can get some, they want to extract some value out of it. They have PSVR value now in their first party, certainly third-party relationships established to make games. If their expectation is that this thing's going to sell them 2 million units, I think that's a safe assumption. But it's a matter of if they want to go mainstream with it or not. And you were saying, Chris, that you never saw a commercial for Meta. That wasn't why you were interested in it. Me neither. But there are commercials for these things all over the place. When I watch football, NFL football, they are advertising this, like the Quest. They are advertising the football game that's coming to it. They're advertising a betting thing that is coming to it, and all these different things.
Yeah.
And so there is a growing segment of people that have this interest in some sort of virtual reality. But to Angel's point, Angel, keep this one thing in mind about PlayStation Direct. And it goes back to what I was saying about Sony identifying PlayStation fans as the people that are buying in. If that's true, we all got emails to pre-order directly from them. There's no need for much else. If you assume that your people are the people that are going to buy it, then that's the best way to extract the most value. Because the one thing that they don't have to do is split any of the money with anyone. And so if they're looking at it through raw dollars and cents, they probably would rather sell 10% fewer units by not going through Amazon and Walmart, because they're actually making more money doing that. And so that might be the cryptic bean counting that's going on behind the scenes about that. But it is a little weird to not make that available to everyone. And my assumption is that that might even suggest some sort of supply issue that unbeknownst to us. But it's important to recall, we're just talking about this because of the report, but Sony denies that it's true. So, and I just don't know that, to your point, Dustin, they do often say that they just often don't say anything, or, the fame they made famous that we don't comment on rumors and speculation. I know that because that was the email I got back 8 million times when I was a journalist.